I want you to picture a typical medical file for a moment. You know the kind I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. The really thick manila folder.
Uh-huh.
Or I guess these days it's more like a secure digital portal you have to log into.
Right, exactly. But if you actually open it up, what is inside that file?
Well, usually.
Yeah.
It's just a catalog of numbers.
Just data.
Yeah. You're looking at blood pressure readings, A1C levels, intraocular pressure measurements, maybe retinal thickness in microns. It's essentially an inventory of your biology.
Right. It's the plumbing of the body. It's like the how to fix the machine manual.
That's a good way to put it.
But I've been going through this massive stack of sources we pulled for today's deep dive, and it really is a huge stack, and I realized pretty quickly that we aren't actually looking at a typical medical file today.
No, we really aren't.
We're looking at what one of the sources calls Category 3.
Category 3, it sounds a bit like a storm warning, doesn't it?
It really does.
Like something you need to board up the windows for.
In a way, it is. But in the context of this research we're diving into, it refers to the human element of diabetic retinopathy, or DOCR.
Right.
And the sources highlight this really stark discrepancy here. This Category 3 is apparently the most neglected topic in clinical settings.
Because doctors rarely have time to bring it up between measuring the fluid in your eye and checking the chart.
Exactly. Yet it is the single most discussed topic in patient support groups.
And that gap between the clinic and the living room, that is the whole story here.
Yeah.
On one side, you have the clinical reality, the laser treatments, the anti-VEGF injections, the drops.
The plumbing.
The plumbing, right? And then on the other side, you have the lived reality. And the lived reality isn't about the retina at all.
What is it about?
It's about identity. It's about the sheer logistical nightmare of trying to navigate a world that just assumes you can see perfectly, all while you're desperately trying to pass as normal.
So that is our mission for this deep dive. We are going to look away from the eyeball itself and look at the person behind it.
I love that.
We've got a ton of material to get through. We have patient observations. We have this massive bank of anonymous questions from community forums, which honestly are just heartbreakingly honest. And we even have a draft community post that was designed to explain the condition to friends and family.
And if there's one single theme running through all of that material, it's this idea of visibility versus invisibility.
Yes. The tension of looking completely fine on the outside.
While on the inside, you're struggling to figure out if that shadow on the ground in front of you is a hole or just a puddle.
It's not just a medical condition. The sources really paint it as a total lifestyle overhaul.
Completely.
Let's get into the specifics, because the sources highlight that this overhaul starts with the most fundamental aspect of modern adult life. Independences. And for most adults, specifically in the infrastructure we live in, independence has a very specific synonym.
Driving.
Driving, absolutely.
In the U.S. and many other places, your driver's license is basically your ID card for adulthood. It's your freedom. And the source material highlights this specific legal line in the sand. It's not just a vague question of can I see, it's can I hit the number?
The 2040 versus 2060 debate.
Right. Depending on where you live, the law requires a specific visual acuity, usually 20/40, to hold an unrestricted driver's license.
And reading through the forums, they are just full of this intense, vibrating anxiety about this exact metric.
Because people aren't just worried about their health anymore. They are worried about the math.
If I slide to 2050, I don't just lose some visual clarity.
No, you lose your ability to get groceries. You lose your ability to commute to work. You lose your ability to drop your kids off at soccer practice.
There is a immense psychological weight to that number that I don't think people with 20/20 vision can really grasp.
It's terrifying.
You're sitting in the doctor's chair, the four-propter, you know, that big heavy mask thing with all the lenses, is sitting in front of your face. And you aren't just reading letters off a wall.
You are taking a pass-fail test on your own autonomy.
Wow. Yeah, it turns the eye exam into a literal trial.
It does. And what's fascinating in the notes is that acuity, that basic ability to read the eye chart, is really only half the battle.
There was one question in the source stack that I found really haunting. Someone just flat out asked, why can I see fine during the day, but I feel completely blind the moment the sun goes down?
Yes. They called it the night blindness paradox.
It's almost like a reverse Cinderella situation. The clock strikes, the sun sets, and your carriage turns into a pumpkin. But why does that actually happen?
It's a great question.
If the eye works perfectly well at noon, why doesn't it work at 7 p.m.?
This is where we have to get just a little bit technical to understand the patient experience.
Okay, lay it on us.
So the retina has two main types of photoreceptors. You have cones, which handle detail and color,
Right.
and then you have rods, which are responsible for low light and detecting motion. Now, diabetic retinopathy often compromises the circulation, the basic blood flow to the retina.
Okay, the plumbing is failing.
Exactly. And rods are extremely metabolically demanding. They need a massive amount of oxygen to function in the dark.
Oh, I see.
So when that circulation is compromised by the disease, the eye just can't keep up with the energy demand of seeing in the dark.
So the visual system effectively just powers down.
Exactly. It's a biological brownout. So at noon, with the sun high in the sky and plenty of photons hitting those cones, you might function at 90%. You feel fine.
But at 6 p.m. in the middle of November,
You drop to 20%,
yeah.
just like that.
Think about the logistical implication of that for your daily life. It creates a strict curfew.
It entirely dictates your schedule. You have to rush to get all your errands done before twilight.
If you realize you need milk at 8 p.m.
You can't go.
Yeah.
Or if a friend calls and says, hey, come meet us downtown for a drink, you can't just hop in your car and go.
That spontaneous freedom, it's just gone.
You are completely tethered to the daylight.
And it's not even just about driving. The sources talk a lot about walking, too, specifically walking in crowded spaces. I hadn't really thought about this before reading the materials, but the loss of peripheral vision turns a standard sidewalk into a hazard zone.
This is what the forums refer to as the tunneling effect.
Right.
If your central vision is still okay, which, by the way, is often the last thing to go in certain types of DR,
Yeah.
you might think you're totally fine. You look straight ahead and the world is clear.
But you lose all the side warnings.
Exactly. The source describes it as people just appearing out of nowhere.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely terrifying. It's like living in a jump scare in a horror movie, but it's just your Tuesday morning commute.
Imagine walking through a busy shopping mall. You're looking straight ahead at a store sign. You feel confident. And then suddenly, bam, someone shoulders hard right past you.
You literally didn't see them coming.
No. And to them, you're the rude guy who wasn't looking where he was going and didn't move.
Mm-hmm.
But to you, they just teleported right into your physical path.
So you're just constantly on edge. You can't ever just zone out and enjoy a walk.
Hypervigilance, that's the specific word the psychologists in the source material use.
Hypervigilance.
They can't just walk anymore. You have to actively scan your environment, head on a swivel, constantly processing every shadow.
It must be mentally exhausting before you even get to where you're trying to go.
The cognitive load of simply moving through physical space is doubled or even tripled.
And then let's say you actually get to where you're going intact. You sit down, you pull out your smartphone to check a text message, and boom, we hit the next hurdle mentioned in the notes.
The text struggle.
Right. This is where the whole high contrast conversation comes into play.
It is.
Now, I always assumed accessibility on a phone just meant making the font huge. Like my grandma's phone has letters that are an inch tall.
That's a very common misconception. We think bigger is always better. But for a damaged retina, bigger isn't always better if the contrast is low.
Explain that a bit more.
Sure. Think about gray text on a white background. That aesthetic is standard for so much modern, sleek web design and app design right now.
Oh yeah, very minimalist.
Right. But to someone with DR, that low contrast just washes out entirely. It looks like dirty water on the screen. You could make that gray text as big as a billboard, but if the sharp contrast isn't there, the damaged retina simply can't separate the signal from the background noise.
So they don't necessarily need huge text. They need high contrast modes.
Yes. White text on a pitch black background,
Mm-hmm.
or bold yellow text on black. It's all about definition, making the edges of the letters pop so the brain doesn't have to work so incredibly hard to decipher what's on the screen.
You mentioned the brain working hard, and that leads us directly into the second section of our outline today. Because if reading a simple text message is that draining, imagine staring at a complex spreadsheet for 8 hours a day.
It's daunting.
It moves us right into the workplace challenges, or what the sources call the professional mask.
This is a huge, huge section of the research. And reading through it, it is fraught with so much fear. The first thing that jumps out immediately is the disclosure dilemma.
This part felt like a really high-stakes poker game to me while I was reading it. The ultimate question everyone is asking is, when do I actually tell my boss?
It's a constant game of risk assessment. The source material puts it incredibly bluntly. They ask, do I have to tell them if I can still technically get the job done?
Because the moment you formally disclose a visual impairment, you risk the stigma.
You risk being managed out. That's the fear.
You worry they'll stop giving you the important high-profile projects because they secretly think you can't handle the fine detail anymore.
But the flip side is just as bad if you don't tell them.
If you don't tell them and you trip over a laptop cable in the middle of a conference room, or you miss a crucial typo in a quarterly report because it was in that low-contrast gray font we just talked about.
Exactly. If they don't know about your eyes, it doesn't look like a medical issue to them. It looks like sheer incompetence.
So you're trapped, you're caught between looking disabled or looking bad at your job.
That's exactly it. And this entire dilemma is complicated by what the sources call the phenomenon of fluctuating vision.
This was the most surprising part of the research for me, honestly.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think most people assume vision loss is a steady downward slope. You slide down a hill and you just stay there at the bottom.
Okay.
But the sources describe it as a daily roller coaster.
The 9 a.m. versus 2 p.m. reality.
Yes. The source notes highlight that things like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, or even just poor sleep the night before can trigger severe vision fog.
So walk us through the actual mechanics of that. Why does high blood sugar suddenly make your vision blurry?
Well, several things happen biologically. High glucose levels can actually cause the lens of the eye itself to swell up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that physical swelling changes its shape, which completely throws off your focus. It can also affect the delicate fluid balance in the retina itself.
Okay.
So think about how this plays out. You might wake up, read the morning paper perfectly fine, commute to work, and absolutely nail the 9 a.m. morning meeting.
You're crushing it.
Right. But then you have a lunch that's maybe a bit too carb heavy, your blood sugar shifts, or maybe you have a really stressful client call that spikes your blood pressure.
And by 2 p.m., you're staring at your computer monitor and it looks like it's completely underwater.
Or like you're trying to read through a smeared, dirty window. Now, how do you explain that phenomenon to a boss who just saw you reading fine 3 hours ago?
I could do this spreadsheet this morning, Susan, but I can't do it now.
You usually can't say that. It sounds like an excuse. It sounds like you're just tired or lazy and trying to get out of work.
So what do people do? They power through.
They power through, they squint until they get massive migraines, they secretly use screen magnifiers when no one else is looking. It's an exhausting all-day performance. They're essentially acting the role of a fully sighted person while their own biology is fighting against them.
Speaking of computer monitors, the notes also brought up the blue light debate.
Oh, this is a big one.
We hear about blue light all the time in the media, but usually it's in the context of sleep hygiene. You know, put your phone away before bed. But the source material here suggests a totally different kind of anxiety for DR patients.
It's highly specific because the stakes are so much higher for them.
Yeah.
The patient queries in the source material show this deep, almost existential fear of accelerating the existing damage.
Right, they ask, does the blue light from my work monitor actually hurt my already damaged retina?
Exactly.
Is there any validity to that fear?
Well, the clinical science on permanent physical damage from standard screens is still being debated in the medical community. But the eye strain, the strain is very real.
And for someone with DR, they are already dealing with a severely compromised system.
Right. They're desperately searching for answers regarding long-term damage versus temporary discomfort. The source suggests they're looking for absolutely anything that might preserve whatever sight they have left.
It's a control mechanism.
Exactly. It's the thought process of, if I buy these expensive blue light blocking glasses, maybe I can stop the clock on my vision loss.
So they look for what HR calls reasonable accommodations. But even that legal process is fraught with anxiety.
Because the word reasonable is entirely subjective.
Right. Is asking for a $500 screen reading software reasonable? Is demanding a 40-inch curved monitor reasonable?
And again, going back to the start of this section, asking for that specific tool requires officially disclosing the medical problem. It forces the issue. It turns that carefully maintained professional mask into a very public conversation about disability in the office.
It just seems like every single step of this journey involves a massive mental toll.
It really does.
Which brings us perfectly to section 3 of our outline, the emotional roller coaster. I want to talk about this specific term they use in the forums. Scan-xiety.
Scan-xiety. It's a clever portmanteau, isn't it?
It is, but the reality behind it is pretty grim. It refers specifically to the 48 hours leading up to an OCT scan or a major eye appointment. But why 48 hours? Why not just the hour before the appointment while you're in the car?
It's the prolonged anticipation. It's the psychological buildup. You know you're about to walk into a sterile room where a doctor is going to look closely at the back of your eye, and explicitly tell you if you're going blind or not.
Wow.
It's a recurring judgment day. Every 3 to 6 months, you are basically put on trial.
The notes describe the silence of the waiting room as this massive amplifier for the fear.
Just think about the sensory deprivation of that specific environment. You're sitting there in those uncomfortable chairs. Usually your eyes have already been dilated by the technician.
Right, so your pupils are huge.
So everything is incredibly blurry and painfully bright. You can't just pick up a waiting room magazine to distract yourself because you can't read the print.
You can't really scroll your phone either because the screen is just a blinding glare.
Exactly. You're just sitting, trapped in the blur, left entirely alone with your own thoughts.
And the thoughts are,
is there a new bleed back there? Do I need a painful laser treatment today? Is this the appointment where they finally tell me they have to take my license away? Is this the beginning of the end?
God, that's heavy. But the draft community post we have in our sources actually suggests a very practical solution, a distraction kit.
Which is such a beautifully human solution to a very clinical problem.
Bring an audiobook, bring a funny podcast, bring a chatty friend who will just talk your ear off in the waiting room.
The advice in the forum is explicit. Do not sit in the silence alone. You have to fill the void so the fear doesn't fill it for you.
There's another fear mentioned here in the emotional section that I found incredibly visceral. It reads almost like body horror.
The wait for the drop.
Yes, the wait for the drop. But to be clear, it's not about waiting for eye drops. It's about waiting for a hemorrhage in the eye.
The exact quote from the source is, "Every time I sneeze or cough." That's the trigger.
That literally stopped me in my tracks when I read it. A sneeze. Something so completely involuntary and mundane.
This is where we need to understand the underlying pathology of proliferative diabetic retinopathy.
Okay, break it down for us.
So, when the retina is starving for oxygen because of poor circulation, the eye tries to fix itself by rapidly growing brand new blood vessels. This is called neovascularization.
Sounds like a good thing, right? The body healing itself.
It sounds good in theory, but these new vessels are absolute garbage. They're incredibly weak, fragile, and leaky. They're like really cheap, shoddy plumbing installed by a bad contractor.
Okay, I follow.
Now, think about the physical mechanics of a sneeze. It's called the Valsalva maneuver. The internal pressure in your head and chest violently spikes for a split second.
Oh, no.
Right? If you have those fragile, leaky new blood vessels sitting right in your eye, that sudden pressure spike from a sneeze can be enough to literally burst them open.
So you just sneeze normally and suddenly
Suddenly, your entire field of vision fills with blood. Patients describe it looking like a dark curtain falling over their eye, or a sudden swarm of black flies, or thick red smoke filling the room.
That is horrifying.
And it can take weeks, or sometimes even months, for that blood to naturally clear out of the eye.
So you literally become afraid of your own bodily functions.
You become a walking, ticking time bomb. You're forced to walk on eggshells inside your own skin. I've seen notes here in the source stack where people describe desperately trying to suppress deep coughs when they have a winter cold.
Not because they're trying to be polite in public.
No, because they are absolutely terrified of waking up with giant black spots in their vision the next day. It creates a state of chronic, inescapable physical anxiety.
And yet, and this is maybe the most cruel irony of all of this, the source heavily emphasizes the invisible burden.
My eyes look normal. That's the refrain. Unless you are in the very, very late stages of the disease, your eyes don't look white or clouded over.
You just look like you.
You make normal eye contact. You don't look blind to the cashier at the grocery store.
So when you tell your family at home, I can't do the dishes tonight, I physically can't see the grime on the plates, but then 5 minutes later, you're sitting on the couch, easily watching TV.
To them, it looks like selective competence. It looks like you're manipulating the situation to get out of chores. It looks like laziness.
You're just exaggerating.
That's the constant accusation from family. And that specific dynamic creates a profound, deep sense of isolation for the patient. You aren't just fighting a degenerative eye disease. You're constantly fighting for your own credibility with the people you love.
And that isolation inevitably leads to grief. The source material asks a very poignant question. Is it normal to mourn the old version of my vision?
That's such a heavy, complex question.
It really is. I mean, we usually associate the word grief strictly with death.
Right, but psychologists know you can grieve a living loss. You grieve the version of yourself who could just hop in the car at 8 p.m. to grab a burger. You grieve the person who didn't go into a panic attack every time they felt a sneeze coming on.
You're mourning the loss of ease.
Exactly. Life used to be easy and automatic. Now everything, every single task, is a massive project.
And that profound loss of ease spills right over into your social life, which is our fourth section. We talked about navigating crowded spaces safely earlier, but there's a very specific social interaction mentioned in the notes that causes a lot of pain.
Yes, the snub.
The snubbing misunderstanding. The notes say this literally breaks long-term friendships.
It really does. It happens all the time.
Walk us through how a snub actually plays out on the street.
Picture this. You're walking down the sidewalk in your neighborhood. A good friend is walking towards you, maybe 10 or 15 feet away, slightly off to your left side. They wave at you. They smile big. They are genuinely excited to see you.
Okay.
And you just keep walking right past them. Stone-faced, staring straight ahead.
Because you literally didn't see them standing there.
Right. Your peripheral vision is completely shot. They were standing right in your blind spot, your scotoma. But the crucial thing is, they don't know that.
So what do they think?
They think, wow, he just looked right through me. What a jerk. I guess he's ignoring me now.
And you, the person with DR, don't even know the interaction happened at all.
Not until a week later when you hear through the neighborhood grapevine that so-and-so is really mad at you. Or worse, they just quietly stop calling you.
That's tragic. But the source actually suggests a script for dealing with this, right?
It does. It provides a literally pre-written apology script for patients to memorize and hand out to friends. It goes, my central vision is okay, but my side vision is patchy. If I don't see you waving, please come closer or shout my name.
It's practical, but having to proactively say that to every acquaintance, it essentially forces you to come out as disabled constantly every time you socialize. You have to lead every interaction with your vulnerability.
Which directly leads to the next big topic in the forums, the identity crisis of the white cane. This is a massively fascinating and heated debate within the DR community.
I have to admit, I always thought the white cane was strictly for people who were totally 100% blind. Like, strictly for feeling the texture of the sidewalk and finding the curb so you don't trip.
That's the physical, tactile function of the cane, and it is incredibly vital for that. But the sources argue powerfully for its symbolic function.
Symbolic?
Yes.
Right.
The cane is a visual signal to the rest of society. It's a communication tool. It loudly tells the world around you, I can't see you very well. Please give me some physical space. Don't expect me to move out of your way.
Ah. It effectively makes the invisible disability instantly visible.
Exactly. But the burning question in the community forum is always, am I blind enough to use one?
Wow, that imposter syndrome creeping back in.
Right. If you still have decent central vision, if you can still technically read texts on your phone or clearly see faces when they are standing directly in front of you, do you feel you have the right to use a white cane? Or are you just faking it?
That is a massive psychological hurdle to jump over.
It is. Because using the cane definitely makes public life safer. People naturally step out of your way. But it also immediately brands you as disabled to every stranger who looks at you.
And for young adults dealing with DR, that public branding is even harder to swallow. The notes dive into the very specific challenges of dating in your 20s and 30s with this condition.
Just imagine being 25 years old. The vast majority of the young adult social world happens at night.
Bars, dimly lit clubs, late dinners, going to concerts.
And we already clearly established the night blindness paradox.
Exactly. So if you physically cannot drive safely at night, you're the 25-year-old who always needs to ask for a ride from mom, or you have to ask to be picked up by your brand new first date.
It instantly shifts the power dynamic of the relationship. It feels highly dependent. It feels very childlike at an age when you just want to be fiercely independent.
It forces you to grow up extremely fast. You have to have these very serious, heavy health and limits conversations on, like, a second date over coffee.
It completely kills the casual, fun dating vibe. It becomes serious business immediately. You have to vet potential romantic partners, not just for physical chemistry, but for deep empathy and actual logistical support capabilities.
Okay, so we've thoroughly covered the struggle here. The anxiety of driving, the exhausting workplace masks, the waiting room terror, the social friction. But the sources do also provide a silver lining here. They outline a Category 3 toolkit.
Yes, thankfully. We can't just leave this entirely on the gloom and doom.
How do people actually learn to adapt to this new life?
Well, the very first step the sources agree on is fully accepting the good days and bad days mystery.
Reaccepting the daily fluctuation.
Yes. Stopping the internal gaslighting of yourself. If today is a bad vision day, you have to just accept it's a bad vision day and not beat yourself up. The source highly recommends tracking triggers.
Basically treating your own body like a science experiment.
Exactly. If you track your data and you know that a bad night's sleep almost always equals a foggy vision morning, you can actually plan around it. You can say, I only slept 3 hours last night, so I am definitively not going to schedule that detailed spreadsheet work for 9 a.m.
It gives you a tiny bit of agency and control back. It turns the terrifying fog from an unpredictable medical mystery into a manageable data point.
Exactly.
What about the driving issue? If you test at the DMV and you can't hit the 20/40 acuity requirement, is that just it? Is it game over for driving forever?
Not necessarily. The source material spends some time talking about bioptic lenses.
Okay, I looked these up. These look like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. I've seen pictures of them in the research.
They really do. They're basically miniature, powerful telescopes physically mounted onto the top half of a pair of standard glasses.
How do you even use that while driving a car?
You look straight through the main standard lens for general traffic awareness, and then you quickly dip your chin down slightly to look through the little telescope to read a distant street sign or check if a traffic light is changing.
And that is actually legal to do.
In many states, yes, it is, though it requires significant specialized driver training to get licensed with them. But it's a brilliant workaround.
It allows you to legally prove you have the required acuity, even if it's technologically assisted. It preserves that precious adult independence we talked about at the very start of the show.
Exactly.
And what about for the workplace? The notes heavily feature something called vocational rehab.
This is a massive resource that so many newly diagnosed people completely miss. There are entire state agencies dedicated specifically to keeping visually impaired people employed.
I always thought those were just for finding new jobs if you got fired.
No, they aren't just for finding new jobs. They are actively there for helping you keep the job you already have. They can send an expert to your office to assess your desk lighting, recommend the right high-contrast software, and sometimes even financially pay for the expensive accessibility tools so you don't have to ask your boss to budget for them.
That's amazing. It's about realizing you don't have to MacGyver this entire disability by yourself in secret. There are established systems out there.
Exactly. And that vital connection extends perfectly to the community check-in aspect of the toolkit.
The major prompt in the source form was, what is one thing you find impossible to explain to people?
And just sharing those impossible things out loud, like the visceral fear of sneezing, it completely validates the patient experience. It actively stops the isolation dead in its tracks.
When you log onto a forum and see a complete stranger halfway across the world say, I'm terrified to sneeze too, you suddenly realize you aren't crazy.
Right. You aren't crazy. You're just sick. And you aren't alone.
Finally, the adaptation toolkit has a very stark warning at the end. Safety first.
Don't wait for the accident to happen. That's the hard, uncomfortable truth of the matter.
Voluntarily giving up the car keys is maybe the hardest, most painful thing an independent adult can do.
It absolutely is. But the source argues, quite persuasively, that doing it on your own terms, proactively, is infinitely better than doing it because you accidentally hit a pedestrian at night.
It's about taking mature ownership of the physical limit rather than letting the physical limit abruptly take you out.
Right. It's about fundamentally redefining what independence means. It's no longer defined as doing absolutely everything by yourself. It's redefined as making responsible, safe choices for your own life and the lives of others.
This entire topic it's been heavy, but incredibly illuminating. If we step back for a minute and look at this entire Category 3 concept as a whole, what is the ultimate synthesis here? What are we taking away from all these sources?
The main synthesis is that diabetic retinopathy is a whole life condition. In the medical field, we constantly treat it strictly like an eye condition.
Yeah.
We treat the physical organ. But the human patient, the patient has to manage the entire life surrounding that organ.
The strategic daily planning, the intense emotional management, the complex social navigation of friendships and workplaces.
It's literally a second full-time job.
Yeah.
And they're doing all of it while desperately trying to just look normal to everyone around them.
I want to leave everyone listening with that final provocative thought pulled directly from the source material, the concept of the impossible explanation.
What is the one thing you find impossible to explain to someone who doesn't have DR?
It really makes you pause and think about how we connect as human beings. In a modern world that relies so heavily, so aggressively on visual cues, where we judge someone's interest by their direct eye contact, where we casually recognize our friends by a wave from across the street.
What happens when that primary channel of connection just breaks down?
Right. In that reality, we have to find entirely new ways to be seen. The true challenge of this disease isn't just about seeing the physical world, it's about ensuring the world still sees you, the real you, through the daily fog.
That is the real human element.
Well said. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
Thank you. It was a great conversation.